Imagine waking up from a life-altering surgery, still groggy from the anesthesia, and struggling to even focus your eyes, only to find out that the very people who were supposed to be guarding your recovery had actually spent that time liquidating your entire life. My parents sold my $425,000 condo while I was literally unconscious on an operating table. And the kicker is, they did it with a smile on their faces, thinking they had finally outsmarted me. They thought they were stripping me of my only asset and forcing me to move back under their thumb, but there was one massive detail they didn't know. I actually owned another house they had no idea about. Was I wrong for letting them think they'd won just so I could deliver the ultimate reality check? Or would you have done the exact same thing if your own flesh and blood betrayed you while you were at your most vulnerable? I really need you to hear this story because I still can't believe this is my life. To understand how we got to this point, you have to understand the dynamic I've had with my parents, Margaret and Howard, for my entire adult life. I'm 32 now, but to them, I've always been the difficult child because I refused to follow the script they wrote for me. They are high-control people who view their children as extensions of their own brand. My older brother, David, is the golden child who did everything right, went to the school they picked, married the girl they liked, and took the job in the family-adjacent firm. I, on the other hand, went into tech, moved 3 states away, and started investing my money in real estate. I bought my condo in the city about 6 years ago. It's a beautiful place, a high-rise with floor-to-ceiling windows and a view that makes the stress of my job melt away. Over the years, the value skyrocketed to $425,000, and I had worked my tail off to pay down the mortgage, often taking extra consulting gigs and living on ramen just to see that principal balance drop. My parents always hated that I owned it. They called it pretentious and isolating, but the truth was they hated that they didn't have a key and couldn't control my environment. Every Christmas visit was a lecture on how I was wasting money on a lifestyle that didn't involve them, and how real family lives within walking distance of each other. They would literally spend hours scrolling through real estate listings in their neighborhood and sending them to me, even after I told them 1,000 times I wasn't moving. About 2 years ago, I started getting into serious investment properties. I bought a second house, a modest but lovely 3-bedroom bungalow in a quiet suburb about 40 minutes away from the city center. I didn't tell a soul, not my brother, not my friends, and definitely not my parents. I rented it out on a short-term basis, and it became my secret safety net, a place where I could go if the world ever got too loud. I spent weekends there painting the walls a calming sage green and fixing the garden, keeping it as my little sanctuary that belonged only to me. Then, 6 months ago, I found out I needed a major reconstructive surgery on my spine. It was a terrifying prospect, the kind of surgery where they tell you there's a chance you might not walk the same way again. I'd be incapacitated for weeks and would need someone to handle my affairs while I was under and during the initial high-dose recovery phase where the pain meds make you forget your own name. Against my better judgment, but feeling a sense of familial obligation and hope that maybe this crisis would finally bring us closer, I reached out to my parents. I gave my mother a limited power of attorney specifically to handle my medical decisions and my immediate bills if I couldn't. I was very clear that it was for medical and financial maintenance. I remember sitting at their kitchen table, the smell of my mom's roast beef in the air, as I signed the papers. I was in so much pain from my back that I just wanted it over with. I didn't realize that in my pre-surgery fog and pain, I had signed a document that was much broader than I intended. Or perhaps they had swapped the pages. I'm still looking into the legalities of that part with my lawyer, but I suspect they had a second document ready to go the moment I looked away to wince at a back spasm. The day of the surgery came, and I was terrified. I went under the knife for 8 hours. When I finally woke up, I was in a haze of morphine and surgical soreness that felt like I'd been hit by a freight train. My mother was sitting by my bed, looking oddly triumphant, wearing her "I know best" expression. She didn't ask how I felt or if the surgery was a success. Instead, she leaned in and said, "Don't worry, honey, we've taken care of everything. You don't have to worry about that big, expensive condo anymore. We found a buyer who wanted a quick cash close, and we've already moved your essentials into our guest room." I thought I was hallucinating. I thought it was the meds playing tricks on my mind. But as the days passed and I regained clarity, the horror set in. They had listed my condo the moment I went into the hospital, found a cash is king investor who didn't ask questions, and used that broad POA to sign the closing documents while I was literally in the ICU fighting to recover. They sold it for a fraction under market value just to get the money fast. It was a fire sale of my entire adult life. They told me they did it to save me from the debt and the burden of living alone, claiming that now I had a nice nest egg in a savings account they controlled, and I could live with them forever where they could watch over me. They had literally cleared out my home in 48 hours. My designer furniture was in a dusty storage unit. My personal items were in taped-up boxes in their damp garage, and my home, my sanctuary, belonged to a stranger. They thought they had trapped me. They thought that without my condo, I'd have no choice but to stay in my childhood bedroom, subservient to their rules, while they managed my money for my own good. They kept saying, "You're too sick to live alone, and this way, we are a family again." Every time I tried to argue, they'd tell the nurses I was confused from the medication and prone to outbursts. They actually had the audacity to tell the nursing staff that I had a history of mental instability, just to keep me quiet while I was physically unable to leave. I stayed quiet. I realized very quickly that if I fought them while I was still unable to walk, they'd find a way to commit me or further restrict my freedom. I played the part of the broken, recovering daughter for 2 full weeks. I let them feed me soup. I listened to them talk about how much better my life would be now that I didn't have the stress of property ownership. And I even let them talk about what kind of curtains we should put in my new room. I watched them gossip with the neighbors over the fence about how they rescued me from my lonely city life. My mother even started inviting nice boys from the church over to meet me while I was still in my surgical brace. But every night, under the covers, I was on my phone. I was checking the status of my secret second house. The tenants had just moved out a week prior, and it was sitting empty, fully furnished with my weekend furniture and ready for me. I was also secretly emailing a high-powered real estate lawyer, gathering every scrap of evidence I could find regarding the sale of my condo. I discovered they had told the realtor I was incapacitated and moving into permanent care, which was a blatant lie to rush the sale. They even had the nerve to donate half of my clothes to charity because they didn't fit the aesthetic of their house. They were literally erasing my identity piece by piece. They even took my high school trophies and put them in a box labeled trash because they said I needed to focus on the future, not my old rebellious phase. Every day was a psychological battle. They would sit me down and talk about how they were going to use the money from the sale to renovate their basement into a suite for me, effectively ensuring I could never leave. They even started talking about me selling my car, saying it was too dangerous for someone with my back issues. I realized then that if I didn't escape soon, I would lose everything. I had to fake being grateful. I had to smile while my heart was breaking. I had to pretend that losing my home was the best thing that ever happened to me. I even had to listen to my father talk about how he was going to invest my money in his friend's failing business to make it grow for me. It was a nightmare. So here is the situation I was in. I was stuck in my parents' house. My primary home was sold. My belongings were in boxes, and my parents were holding the check from my condo sale in an account I couldn't easily access yet. I had to decide. Do I scream and fight now and risk them digging their heels in further, or do I wait for the perfect moment to show them that their plan failed? Before I tell you how I handled the big reveal and the absolute chaos that ensued when they realized I wasn't their prisoner, I want you to pause and comment below. What would you have done in my shoes? Would you have called the police immediately from the hospital bed, or would you have played the long game like I did to ensure they couldn't stop your escape? Tell me if you think I'm being too cold or if they deserve everything that's coming to them. I waited until the day I was finally cleared by the doctor to drive, which was the hardest 3 weeks of my life pretending to be their little girl again. My parents were out at a celebratory brunch with their church friends, probably toasting to their success in reclaiming their daughter and finally fixing her life. They had even made a Facebook post about it, calling me their miracle recovery and thanking God for giving them the strength to guide me home. I had already called a professional moving company days in advance, instructing them to meet me at the garage at exactly 10. 11:00 a.m. While they were out eating Eggs Benedict, I had the movers come and take every single one of my boxes from their garage. I didn't take a single thing that belonged to them, not even a spoon, but I took every bit of my life they had tried to box up. I even found my high school yearbooks and old photos they had hidden away to try and rewrite my history. I left a single note on the kitchen island, right next to the bowl of fake fruit my mom loved so much. It didn't say, "I hate you," and it didn't say, "How could you?" It simply said, "I'm going home now." By the way, the power of attorney has been revoked as of 9 this morning. My lawyer will be contacting you regarding the unauthorized sale of my property and the misappropriation of $425,000. And you might want to check the address I'm sending this from on your GPS, because you never did know everything about me. Don't come looking. I drove to my second house, the bungalow they knew nothing about. When I walked in, I felt a level of freedom I can't even describe. The air smelled like lavender and independence, and for the first time in a month, my back didn't even hurt that much. About an hour later, my phone started exploding. It was like a digital war zone. My mother was screaming into the voicemail, her voice hitting pitches I didn't know were humanly possible, asking where I was, calling me ungrateful, and demanding to know what home I was talking about. She sounded like she was having a complete psychotic break. My father sent me a text saying I was being hysterical and that I needed to come back home before I hurt myself or lost the money. He actually tried to claim the money from the condo sale was family equity now. I didn't reply with words. I sent them a single photo, me sitting on the front porch of my bungalow, holding the deed with my name on it in one hand and a glass of expensive wine in the other. The silence that followed was deafening. It took them 3 hours to find the address, but by the time they pulled into the driveway, I had a private security guard standing at the gate. Watching their faces turn from rage to pure confusion through the window was the most therapeutic part of my recovery. They were banging on the gate, screaming that I was tricking them and that I stole the money for this house. They realized that their plan to make me dependent on them had completely and utterly backfired. They had sold my condo, yes, but they hadn't broken me. In fact, they had just handed me a massive legal case against them that could potentially ruin them. My lawyer is currently filing for a full accounting of the sale, and we are pursuing them for the full $425,000, plus the difference in market value they lost by rushing the sale, plus damages for emotional distress and fraud. They are terrified now. They've gone from being concerned parents to begging me not to press criminal charges for the fraudulent use of the POA. They've even tried to say that they'll give the money back if I just come back to the family fold. I laughed. I told them the family fold was a prison I was never returning to. They even tried to get my brother David to fly out and talk some sense into me. David tried to intervene, calling me and telling me to just let it go because they meant well, and that family is more important than bricks and mortar. I told him that if he didn't back off and stop being their flying monkey, he'd be next on the list for being an accessory to their scheme. I told him he should be careful, because if they could do this to me, they do it to him the moment he stopped being perfect. The aftermath has been messy and loud. My parents are being shunned by our extended family because, as it turns out, selling your child's house while they're in surgery is a bridge too far even for the most traditional relatives. My aunts and uncles are calling me, offering support and expressing their absolute shock that my parents could be so cruel. I've cut off all contact with my parents and David. I'm recovering in my beautiful, secret bungalow, surrounded by my own things, and for the first time in my life, I am truly beyond their reach. The garden is blooming, the neighbors are kind, and the quiet is exactly what I needed for my spine to heal. I've even started the process of buying a third property with some of the settlement money I'm expecting. I've installed a top-of-the-line security system, and I'm legally changing my name so they can't track my future investments. I am also working with an advocate to share my story and help others understand the dangers of signing broad power of attorney documents without ironclad protections. They thought they could buy my presence by selling my future, but all they did was prove why I needed to get away from them in the first place. They wanted a daughter they could control, but they ended up with a daughter who knows her worth and knows how to protect it. I am building a life they will never be a part of, and honestly, that's the best revenge of all. The road to recovery is long, both physically and emotionally, But every day I wake up in my own bed, in a house they don't own, is a victory. The moral of the story is that some people will try to set fire to your life just so they can be the ones to save you from the flames. They think love is control, but love is actually respect. Never give anyone, even family, the power to destroy you, and always keep a secret ace up your sleeve. Always have a plan B, a place where they can't find you, and a lawyer on speed dial who doesn't mind playing hardball. It's been a long road, but I'm finally standing on my own 2 feet, and this time, nobody is going to knock me down. Like this video if you were on my side and think my parents got exactly what they deserved for their betrayal. Subscribe for more stories about people standing up to toxic family members and winning. And please, share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section. Have you ever had a family member betray your trust like this? How would you have reacted if you found your home gone after waking up from surgery? Let me know if you would have gone to the police or just taken the money and run. I'll see you all in the next story.